It has been a while since we've had a good sit-down chat, and it's a rainy day, so it's the perfect time to talk all about fertility, just in general, and I'll give you a little bit of a personal update. So first, I'm going to talk about why fertility is important because it comes up in my videos and there's always some sarcastic comment like, why are you so obsessed with fertility? Well, I'll tell you why I'm obsessed with fertility because I am kind of obsessed with it. Then we're also going to talk about secondary infertility. We're going to talk about conceiving while breastfeeding, and then I'll give you my personal update. And I do have a stack of books here. I always get asked for book recommendations, and I am so terrible about updating my Amazon book lists. I do have book lists, I just don't do it because you guys know I don't have a smartphone. I do have a computer. That's like how I edit my videos and post them here on YouTube. But like once I'm done editing a video, then I just want to get off my computer. I don't want to do anything else. So it's just pure laziness, like why I don't do these things. I guess you could call it laziness. I just don't have a desire to be on my computer that much. But I do have books for you guys today, actual real books. So the first book is going to explain why I'm obsessed with fertility and why you should be too if you're a woman in the childbearing season. And that is because fertility is the fifth vital sign. Get this book. If you do not have this book is so good. I guess I should do a little bit of a disclaimer. You guys, I'm Catholic, so I believe all the Catholic things about fertility and childbearing and all of them, like wholeheartedly. I believe all of them. But I'm sad to say there just really isn't much Catholic friendly writing on like the nitty gritty and the details of fertility, or if there is, I don't know, I guess I just haven't been exposed to it. So a lot of my favorite books, they mention things that are not in alignment with my personal beliefs, whatever. I can just, what do they say? Like spit out the bones or something, chew the meat, spit out the bones. I can take the good and I can just like ignore the rest. I love this book. It's so good. And I love the title because it's so important for us to realize that fertility really is like our menstrual cycle, our fertility. That is our fifth vital sign as women. And it is right to be obsessed if there's something off with that vital sign, just like it would be normal and right to kind of be obsessed if you had like really high blood pressure or your, pulse was like through the roof or you're having trouble breathing, right? Think of your other vital signs. If one of them is off and it's not functioning properly, that's going to kind of be all consuming. You're going to want to figure that out because it's really important. But I think we can just sweep our fertility and our menstrual cycle symptoms and abnormalities under the rug. Having that mindset really is just a huge wasted opportunity to gain insights into our overall general health and make changes that we need to make. We view fertility through a much different lens than it was viewed for all of history. So for all of history, fertility was viewed as a blessing. I mean, in some cultures and societies, this is terrible. They actually committed human sacrifice to their gods so that they would be blessed with even greater fertility, right? They saw fertility as that much of a gift and a blessing because it's essential to continue on the human race. Seems kind of common sense, but we've totally lost that these days. People just view fertility as an accessory, something they can switch on, switch off when they want it, when they don't. And if it's not working, whatever, there are ways around that. Another book in the same vein as the fifth vital sign is Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Both of these, these are probably my top two, as this book says, master your menstrual cycle. So mastering your menstrual cycle, actually understanding what's going on and if there are problems, why those problems are happening. Taking charge of your fertility means that you will be able to track your cycles, understand what is going on hormonally inside of your body at all times. And if you have all of your working parts, right? You've got a uterus, you've got ovaries, you've got you just need one fallopian tube, one ovary. If you've got at least one, then you're going to understand the process of bringing things into alignment so that you can become pregnant naturally. Because if you've got all of your parts and your partner has all of their parts, then with work and lifestyle changes, you most likely can become pregnant naturally. If a couple seeks out something like IVF or IUI and they're able to get that to work, that means that they would have been able to get pregnant naturally with lifestyle changes. It's just that that's not profitable for the assisted reproductive technology industry, for people to just make lifestyle changes with what they're eating and, you know, how they're living day to day and then fall pregnant naturally. That doesn't make them any money, so of course they're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that you need them. You absolutely need IVF or whatever to get pregnant, when that's just not the case if you've got your parts. Okay, we're gonna move on to secondary infertility, conceiving while breastfeeding, and my update. Before we do, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video, which is Function Health, and I'm actually going to expand on this later when I give you a personal update. Function Health is a proactive health membership designed to give you control over your health through regular diagnostic blood testing, personal insights, and telehealth support. Beyond their comprehensive 100+ biomarker panels, they also offer advanced add-on screenings like ApoB and LPA for deeper heart risk analysis, the GRAIL multi-cancer early detection test, genetic testing for Alzheimer's risk, optional imaging such as MRI and low-dose CT scans, and they even offer testing for heavy metal exposure, MTHFR, if that's something you've never been tested for, exposure to toxins like PFAS substances. There are so many options that you can add on to your blood testing with Function Health to get an overall picture of what is going on inside of your body. And the best part is that you own all of this information, and you can keep it private and kind of go through the analysis and decision-making process privately without pressure to pursue more testing or use pharmaceuticals if that's not something you're wanting to do. When you join Function Health, you get started by ordering your first comprehensive lab panel and making an appointment at a nearby lab. They partner with over 2,000 labs across the country. Your results will come in over the next couple of weeks, and Function organizes everything into an easy-to-read dashboard that shows you which areas are optimal, which areas need attention, and action steps that you can take next. You get personalized insights based on your biomarkers and access to telehealth support if that's something that you want. From there, you can implement any changes that you see fit and then repeat testing every 6 to 12 months so that you can actually track your progress and see what's going on inside of your body. If you were to order all of the biomarkers and screenings available through Function independently, it would cost you over $10,000, but with Function, you get access to all of that for $499 a year. And I can confirm this is a really good deal because I have been ordering my own labs for years, and something as simple as a basic thyroid panel can cost a few $100s when you order that independently. So Function truly is a very cost-effective way to monitor your health and keep things private so that you own your information and you're not being pressured as you're making decisions. The first 1,000 people who use my code HOPEWELL100 will get a $100 credit toward their Function membership. So I will put my code, my link, and all the details in the description below the video. Be sure to check it out before you go. What is secondary infertility? This is something that I had never even heard of until I experienced it. So secondary infertility is more or less when you have been able to get pregnant before. You've been able to, you have a baby, at least one, maybe 2, 3. So you know that you can conceive, you can get pregnant, but then you experience infertility at a later time. So this actually happened to me. Our first 3 children were conceived very easily. I was in my 20s. We did not have to try. We just got pregnant. And I just assumed that would be how it always was for me. But then we had a big gap before we had our 4th child. And for those of you who don't know that story, I do think I have a video on it. Maybe I talked about it in my video on Vitex, so you could search like Hopewell Heights Vitex, or I have another video called More Babies. So search Hopewell Heights More Babies. I have 2 videos kind of talking about this stuff. But after our 3rd baby, my husband did get a vasectomy, and then that's something that we regretted and wanted to get reversed, which you can do that. You can get sterilizations reversed, whether it is a vasectomy or a tubal ligation. You know, you can get it done for as cheap as a couple $1,000s, but there's no guarantee that it's gonna work. I don't believe morally in sterilization, but even if I did, I would never recommend that as like a temporary birth control because there's no guarantee that the reversal will work. In our case, it did work, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I know people in my real life who have experienced this, you know, gotten a vasectomy or a tubal, regretted it, got it reversed, and even though they're in great health, the reversal did not work. Whether scar tissue formed or whatever, it just didn't work. So don't count on that. It's like, we'll get a vasectomy now just so we're sure we can take a 3 to 4 year break and then we'll get it reversed. Don't count on that. Success rates vary. I've seen anywhere from like 70 to 80% success rates. And you know, you always think, oh, well, I'll be one of those people where it will work and everything will be great for me. And then I'll get pregnant. But more often than you would think, it just doesn't work out for a multitude of reasons. And one reason actually is secondary infertility. I've talked to a lot of people who have experienced this. You know, they have a few babies and then they have a break for whatever reason. Maybe they go on birth control, maybe they get a sterilization, get it reversed, or maybe none of that. Maybe nothing happens. You know, they have a few babies and then just out of nowhere, they experience infertility. They're not able to get pregnant. This happened to me. We got the vasectomy reversal and, you know, I assumed I'd get pregnant right away. A year later, still not pregnant. And I had not been breastfeeding for like 3 years at that time. So there was really no obvious reason why I would not be fertile and not be getting pregnant. That's actually when I learned more about charting my cycle, got into books like The Fifth Vital Sign, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, because I was determined to figure it out. I was like, I've got all my parts. I just got to figure this out. And I was able to figure it out and get pregnant. I've gotten pregnant twice since then. So why does secondary infertility happen? Well, it happens because you run out of energy. You run out of energy stores to continue being fertile and to create a new life, which these days it's not hard to see how that could happen. Modern life is very stressful, metabolically stressful on the body. Most people are depleted in nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and just live very stressful lives. So infertility in general is very common, but it's not hard to see how after a woman has 1 baby or 2 babies or 3 babies, her body just physically does not have the energy to continue reproducing. This happens a lot. But I think secondary infertility gets conflated with natural suppression of fertility during breastfeeding a lot. I hear so many women talking about how they're experiencing secondary infertility because they're trying to get pregnant and it's not happening, yet they're still breastfeeding their last baby. And I do think it's helpful to make that distinction. So if you are breastfeeding and you are not getting pregnant, that is, you're not experiencing secondary infertility. It's true that you're not fertile right now or you're not conceiving right now, even though maybe you want to be conceiving, but it just doesn't fall under that classification. It's just that, due to your body not having enough energy to sustain another new little life at the moment, you are maybe not ovulating, maybe you're not cycling yet, maybe your cycles have not returned yet, or if they have, then you're either not ovulating, you are ovulating late and then having a short luteal phase, but it's just not happening right now due to the energy that is going toward breastfeeding. As far as when fertility will return, when the cycle will normalize and when you'll be able to conceive, that's going to be different for every woman depending on her stress load and her nutrient status. There are things that you can do to help if you're trying to conceive while breastfeeding, there are things you can do to help regulate your cycle and achieve that. But at the end of the day, some women just are not going to be able to conceive until they wean, until they stop breastfeeding. And for me personally, that is just never something I would do. I would never wean a baby for the sole purpose of getting pregnant again. I'm definitely open to getting pregnant while breastfeeding. That's happened to me 3 times. Yeah, 3 times I've gotten pregnant while breastfeeding and I'm great with that. But I'm not going to wean a baby that needs nourishment at the breast and that is actively seeking nourishment at the breast for the next baby that may or may not come, because weaning isn't necessarily a guarantee that you're going to fall pregnant right away. Sometimes it can take months, 6 to 12 months. So conceiving while breastfeeding, if that is something that you're hoping is going to happen, that you're wanting to happen, you don't want to wean your baby, but you want to get pregnant, then you need more energy. Your body needs to have the signals that it has enough energy to create new life. Because what happens is when we don't have enough energy in the body due to stress from, it could be a multitude of factors. It could be that we're under eating. I think this happens a lot. Or maybe we're carb loading. That means that you're putting carbs first. That doesn't mean carbs are bad. We need carbs. But what that means is maybe you're having your coffee and your cinnamon roll, and then for lunch, you're having a couple slices of sourdough bread and another coffee, and you get to the end of the day, you just haven't had any protein or very little fat. You're focusing all on carbs. I think this is really easy to do. We're in the era of sourdough. We all love to be baking at home, which is great and wonderful, and sourdough bread and baked goods are delicious and can be very healthy. We just have to, I think, put protein first. So like build your meals around protein. Make sure that you're hitting your protein goals and then fill in with your carbs and fats. So if you're under eating, if you're undernourished, that can be a huge stress on the body. So your body doesn't have enough energy to switch on the hormones for making sure that reproductive systems are functioning properly to make a new baby. Another thing would just be other life stressors. So if you are maybe in a stressful job, or you are in like several stressful social situations, or maybe you're sleep deprived, you're not getting enough sleep, then that can really just increase your burn rate, where you're burning through your mineral stores and you don't have enough energy to keep those reproductive hormones functioning properly. Also, frequency of nursing is a huge factor. So how frequently is your baby nursing? The more often they nurse, even if they're just latching on for a few minutes, if they're doing that every couple of hours throughout the day and the night, and you're never getting like a really long stretch where they don't nurse, then your prolactin is going to stay elevated longer, which is going to keep ovulation suppressed, keep progesterone low, and keep you from getting pregnant with another baby, because your body is like, I'm already doing this thing. I'm already providing a lot of energy to this current baby, so we don't need to be making another baby. So, that's, to me, that's just really not a problem if a baby is nursing frequently. However, sometimes when they get to be closer to like 2 or beyond and they're still nursing, and they still want to nurse all the time at night, I personally am okay with cutting them off like in the middle of the night and getting that long stretch, not only for just the return of my fertility, but mainly for my sleep. I know they're old enough to survive and thrive and do just fine if they're not nursing every couple of hours at night. They're going to be just fine. I still respond to my babies. So even when I night wean, which, I'm not going to give you guys an age. I think that's something that you need to really just tune in, use your intuition for each individual baby. When you think that like middle of the night nursings need to be scaled back, it's just gonna be different for each situation. But when you reach that point where you're like, maybe, I don't know, my baby is like 1.5, they're nursing every couple hours at night, and I don't think it's because of teething, they're not sick, I just kind of need to stretch this out. I can tell you how I do that is I still co-sleep. Like I still allow them to come in my bed. I still respond to them. I don't do cry it out, because it's just not biologically normal to ignore the cries of your child. So cross-culturally, for all of history, you really just don't find that in any other culture where mothers are, turning away from a crying child, especially in the middle of the night. So that's what I do. When I get to the point to where baby's old enough, I want that long stretch at night without nursing in the middle of the night, I will nurse them to sleep and then, lay them down. And then when they wake up, if they wake up and they cry for me, I go get them, I bring them into my bed, I just don't let them nurse. And the first couple of nights of doing that is really rough. Like they are very ticked at me because they want to nurse. They know it's right there and they're like pulling on my shirt, trying everything to nurse. But I just keep patting their back and saying, no nursing. It's okay. And then, they kind of get the message after a couple of days, it's fine. And then they still might want to come to bed with me and lay with me, which I'm totally fine with. But I just get that nice long break from nursing in the middle of the night, and that really kicks things back into gear. That is like the most powerful way to regulate your cycles. If you are breastfeeding and trying to conceive, it is getting a long stretch, like 8 hours-ish every day where you are not nursing. Your prolactin levels are going to drop, your other reproductive hormone levels are going to rise and regulate, and for most women, this is when they're going to get pregnant. Now for my personal update, where I'm at, and I'll go over a little bit of my lab work with you guys. So my 5th baby is 20 months old, and I am not pregnant. I'm not just saying that. I know people guess all the time that I'm pregnant, but I'm just really not pregnant. I have had my cycles now. Let's see, I think he was 13 months old, which is about the usual for me. I usually get my cycle back when the baby's about 1. So he was 13 months old when my cycles returned, and I've had 7 or 8 of them, and you know, they look pretty good. They always start out with like a really short luteal phase, and you really need your luteal phase to be at least 12, but optimally like more like 14 days long to conceive, to give an egg that has been fertilized enough time to travel down the fallopian tube and into uterus and to implant, and progesterone levels to stay high long enough for all of that to happen. When the luteal phase is shorter than 12 days, then it's really unlikely that you're going to get pregnant. So I am still breastfeeding my 20-month-old. I have no intentions to quit or slow down for the sole purpose of getting pregnant again. I'm very happy to just continue nourishing him and meeting his needs, but through charting and getting blood work, I was able to identify a few really specific areas that I could improve on to give my body more energy. And you never know, by doing these things, I might actually be able to regulate my cycle, and I might end up getting pregnant without having to wean, which, like I said, for me, that's off the table. I'm not weaning my baby. So I use the symptothermal method of charting, meaning that I'm looking at several different things, symptoms of my body throughout the month to get a very clear picture of when my fertility is building up, when I ovulate, and what my progesterone levels look like in the second half of my cycle to see if they would support implantation and pregnancy. One of the main things that I look for every day is I take my basal body temperature. I just take it in the morning, first thing when I wake up. I think a lot of people are scared to do that because, you know, when you read online about charting with taking your temperature, they say you have to do it at the exact same time every single morning. You have to use a specific thermometer, and they just make it so technical that it seems intimidating and impossible. Well, I can tell you guys, I do not wake up at the exact same time every morning, and I don't use a specific thermometer. Actually, let me show you what I use. I use a cheap Vicks instant thermometer because I am not about to sit here for 5 minutes to wait for a slow thermometer to give me the results like first thing in the morning, because I'll fall back asleep. So this instant thermometer takes just like 3 seconds, and then I have my temperature, and it works just fine. Even though I'm waking up in the middle of the night sometimes to go get a baby and nurse, and I'm not waking up at the same time, I'm using the cheap thermometer, I can still get a really good chart, and I can still get a lot of insights every month. It's totally worth charting even if you don't have the perfect sleep-wake cycle and you're not using the fancy thermometer. My temperatures are so good right now. They range anywhere from 98 to like 98.9, which is exactly where they should be. Our body temperature should average about 98.6. And when it's lower, it means that thyroid function is low, your thyroid is sluggish, your liver is probably sluggish, and your reproductive hormones are just getting down regulated. It's not a priority for your body. So just that one thing, taking your temperature every morning can tell you so much about your health. So I know from my temperatures that my metabolism is in a great place. Everything is more or less where it needs to be. But since I have a shorter luteal phase, that tells me that I'm still lacking in energy in some way. My body is still under stress in a way that it is suppressing normal hormonal function. And that could just be the normal stress of breastfeeding because, you know, breastfeeding requires a lot of nutrients. A lot of calories go toward breastfeeding. I think they say that it takes like 300 to 500 calories, you know, every day to produce breast milk. I think it's a lot more than that. My blood work looked great overall, but there were two really specific markers that were off that clued me in on some changes that I need to make with my diet and lifestyle. So my homocysteine was high, not super high, but it was elevated at 12.2, and my leptin was really, really low at 0.9. And these are biomarkers that I have never tested before because for the last couple of years, I've actually been getting blood work done through my chiropractor. I've done some independently and then some through my chiropractor. And they do really extensive blood work at my chiropractor, but not as extensive as I got with my function lab work. So I just had never tested these things before. So everything else was in range. If I would have just continued getting like the normal blood work that I was getting, I wouldn't have seen anything out of the ordinary that would have given me any insight on what to do to improve my health. However, seeing that my homocysteine was high, I immediately remembered something I had read a few years ago about high homocysteine being caused by low copper. When the body breaks down protein, it creates a normal amino acid called homocysteine, which then gets recycled. However, if this recycling system is not working properly for some reason, then homocysteine can build up and cause inflammation. And that is exactly what's happening with me. So I'm just gonna explain a little bit how that works. In order to recycle homocysteine properly, the body needs nutrients like vitamin B12, folate, and a helper molecule called SAMe, which acts like a methyl delivery truck that delivers little methyl groups needed to turn homocysteine back into a safe form. So this homocysteine recycling process is dependent on B12, folate, and SAMe. These nutrients are protected by enzymes that are copper dependent. So when copper is low, then we do not have these enzymes to protect B12, folate, and SAMe, so the recycling system for homocysteine is slower than it should be, and homocysteine starts building up, we get increased inflammation. Addressing copper deficiency can be done by supplementation, but it can also be done with copper-rich foods. I think we all know that beef liver is a good source of copper, although not so much these days because our soil is so depleted, so cows just aren't getting as much copper in their diet, even if they're grass-fed and grass-finished. So what I added into my diet is actually bee pollen, which is very rich in copper. And so now that my body is getting the copper it needs, my antioxidant enzymes that protect vitamin B12 and folate should be working better so that homocysteine can be converted back into a safe form. And then I should have more cellular energy to produce more of that like helper molecule, the methyl delivery truck called SAMe that can recycle homocysteine. So all of that should happen because it's been over a month since I've gotten my blood work and implemented these changes, I'm eating at least like a teaspoon of bee pollen every day, and so getting more copper. I will be getting my blood work redone in 3 months, so we'll see if I'm making progress with the homocysteine, but it was so nice to have that detail and then be able to change something very specific that was pretty easy to change in my diet. Now, as far as my leptin, having a leptin level of 0.9 is very, very low. It should be a minimum of 4. I think the optimal range is like 4 to 10. And actually most women have the problem of leptin resistance where their leptin is really, really high and they need to bring it down, but mine is so low. And that is because I don't have enough body fat. So leptin is made by fat cells and signals to the brain that we have enough energy. It just signals to the brain like what our true energy stores and levels are. And my level of 0.9 is in the like starvation range. So that is what my body is signaling to my brain, is that we're in starvation mode over here. And then in turn, my brain shifts down on producing reproductive hormones, which explains why my luteal phase is short. So putting these two things together, having a high homocysteine tells me that I have low copper. And then the really low leptin tells me that I'm just not getting enough nourishment, even though I eat a lot. So then that leads me to think that I'm not absorbing the nutrients from what I'm eating, and that maybe I need to take a look at my supplement routine and focus more on targeted supplements. So that's what I've been doing over the last month, because it is really important to me that I try to keep my body functioning optimally and have as much energy as possible. So as far as the copper, I've added in bee pollen. I do eat beef liver. I've done beef liver capsules just as a supplement in the past, but I actually enjoy eating beef liver. So a couple times a week, I will eat liver and onions. And then for my super low leptin levels, I am trying to eat more. It is really hard because I already eat a lot. I don't track my calories, but I know that I'm eating at least 3,000 calories a day. So it's hard to eat more than that, but I'm trying. I'm drinking a lot of milk. I've increased my mineral intake, added in some things like shilajit and just different forms of magnesium. And one thing that I just did that I didn't want to do, I did not want to do this, but I cut out coffee. I cut out caffeine. So caffeine is one of those things that, you know, there are so many mixed messages out there, like, is it bad? Is it good? Well, it can be good, it can be bad, just depending on where you're at with your stress and energy levels. If you are fertile and healthy and have high energy levels, then caffeine can be a really metabolically supporting thing for you. It can oppose excess estrogen. There are a lot of benefits to consuming caffeine. However, if you are having problems with fertility or low energy, in my case, my really low leptin tells me that my body, you know, thinks it's in like starvation mode, then adding a stimulant, adding coffee to that actually might be causing some of that problem. If not causing, then it's definitely exacerbating that. So that just tells me I need to cut back on the coffee, actually cut it out. I've completely cut it out until my body can get out of starvation mode and back into safety mode, and then we'll reevaluate. All right, well, I've been talking for a really long time, so we're gonna wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any comments or questions, drop them below. Other books that I had sitting here that I didn't bring out, but I wanna show you guys, just kind of related to what we talked about today, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. This is such a great read to explain how maternal nutrition affects not just fertility, but also pregnancy and the health of the baby. This one is called Be Fruitful and Multiply by Nancy Campbell. It is the biblical case for being open to life, so for not using contraception. And I specifically am sharing a book written by a Protestant, so not a Catholic person, because I think a lot of people just associate like being open to life with something that only Catholics do. But prior to 1930, all Protestants were actually on the same page. Whether you were Baptist or Presbyterian or the little church, you know, out in the woods, all Protestants agreed that contraception was not a permissible practice for Christians. So I think it's a really important thing for all Christians to look into. Next book is Gut and Physiology Syndrome, also known as GAPS. Maybe you've heard of the GAPS diet. You probably heard of me talk about the GAPS diet, and it is just following the principles and healing diet laid out in this book, which is not anything like trendy or new. It's actually just returning to the ways that people ate for all of times, especially when they were unwell and needed a period of healing. So you can really make a lot of progress healing anything from, let's see, I'll just read on here, allergies, autoimmune, arthritis, gut problems, fatigue, hormonal problems, neurological disease. The GAPS diet is helpful for all of those things. And the last book is Honoring Our Cycles by Katie Singer. This is actually a companion book to Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. So if there are any Nourishing Traditions fans out there, then you will probably really, really like this book. It is short and sweet and very easy to understand. This is definitely something that you could use to teach your daughter about the menstrual cycle, about knowing, you know, which days of the cycle that you can get pregnant, which days you can't, and just general knowledge in regard to our menstrual cycles. I will link the books that I mentioned in the description below the video, along with my code for Function Health. Thank you guys for watching again this week. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll see you all next week.